Hello, my explorers! Welcome again to another excursion on Rowena Explores. On today's trip, I visited the oldest house in Manhattan. Built in 1765 is the Morris-Jumel Mansion, located at 65 Jumel Terrace. While we walk together on this self-guided tour, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell as to get notified whenever I upload new videos. According to the website morrisjumel.org, the Morris-Jumel Mansion was completed in 1765 as a summer house for British Colonel Roger Morris, his wife Mary Phillips, and their family on approximately 135 acres of land that was estimated to stretch from the Harlem to the Hudson Rivers between what is now 155th and 165th Streets. Their country estate was named Mount Morris and, being situated on one of the highest points of Manhattan, offered clear views of New Jersey, Connecticut, and a lot of New York Harbor. In addition to serving as a summer retreat, Mount Morris was also a working farm with fruit trees, cows, and sheep, as well as a variety of crops. With the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War in 1776, the Morris family abandoned their summer home. During the autumn of 1776, George Washington and his Continental officers occupied the house and made it their headquarters from September 14 to October 21st. The superb views from Mount Morris made the location strategically ideal for observing troop movements, and General Washington used this advantage to plan his army's first successful victory on September 16 during the Battle of Harlem Heights. Despite this victory, on October 21st, George Washington was forced to retreat to White Plains, New York for the remainder of the war. Let's go inside.
And go over to the gift shop over here, and they'd be more than happy to get the door for you. Final COVID-related protocol, if you look here at the ground, you'll see a number 1. So we have the tour stop system in place just to help keep visitors naturally socially distanced, but also to make sure that you don't miss any of the major stops here at the house, like the period rooms or some of the more major artworks that are important to the narrative of the house. So definitely recommend following the stops. They go from 1 to 12 on this first floor, the second floor, and there's one stop down in the on the basement, which is the 5th stop. And general museum house rules are also pretty simple. No food or drink while you're here. Photography is allowed, just no flash. And most importantly, please don't touch any of the furniture or artwork that's not on display. And that includes things like the wallpaper and the door frames. Right, any questions? All right.
Eliza and Stephen Jamel purchased this property, then known as Mount Morris, in 1810 to be used as their summer house. They immediately began a remodeling and redecorating campaign with the goal of updating the structure in a manner more reflective of current design trends, including motifs and furnishings inspired by Greece and Rome. This room would be functional as a greeting room or informal parlor for guests visiting the house. Most of the furniture found in this room was acquired by Eliza Jamel while residing in France and is of an empire style with richness and ornament meant to celebrate Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte's leadership and the French state. It was rumored that Jamel knew Napoleon, and according to Jamel family tradition, some of the pieces in this room were reported to either be purchased or gifted from Napoleon after he deposed in 1814. 14 months after Stephen Jamel's death of pneumonia in 1832, Eliza Jamel married former Vice President Aaron Barr in this room. The union was short and stormy. For 4 months after their nuptials, Eliza hired Alexander Hamilton Jr. as her attorney to divorce Burr. The divorce proceeding lasted 3 years and were due to finalize on the day Burr died in 1836. Dining room 1825. Throughout most of the 18th century, American residence did not contain specific rooms for dining. Instead, 3 or 4 rooms on the main floor were used interchangeably as parlors and places to take certain meals. The use of rooms exclusively for tea services or post-dinner port, wine, and brandy began to transition into fixed dining rooms towards the end of the 18th century. The room contains a servicing alcove, which is an innovative architectural feature thought to be the first of its design in New York, if not all 13 colonies. The inclusion of this space in the room indicated that the purpose of the room was specified for dining, while also separating the spaces from entertaining and socializing, as well as obscuring the view of the enslaved person or servants who served the meals. Serving alcoves, while new to the American tastes, were fashionable in late 18th century English homes. Original homeowner Roger Morris, whose father was a London architect, likely learned of this innovation and chose to include one when designing the home. Also rare, if not unique, is the Jamel family tilt-top saber-leg dining table, a mechanical device more often associated with the 18th century than the first quarter of the 19th century. The draped cone pattern is a surprising design reminiscent of patterns from the French Art Deco a century later. Located in the basement, as was typical for large 18th century country homes within the 13 colonies, the kitchen was the center of activity for the household staff, including the people who were enslaved by the Morris family. The labor-intensive preparation of meals for the family was a lengthy process taking most of the day. Nearly every aspect of each meal was prepared within these walls, whether baked fresh that day or preserved through various methods for use throughout the year. The various dishes for each course of every meal were prepared and assembled within the kitchen. Members of the staff carried each dish upstairs to the butler's pantry and transferred the food from preparation vessels to those used for serving. In the early 20th century, a kitchen was constructed on the eastern side of the building on the ground floor. This more modern kitchen was used heavily during the more early museum period beginning in 1904. The stairwell was configured during the period as well, with access points changing on almost every floor. Of all the rooms within the house, the basement kitchen has undergone the greatest alteration. The original configuration of walls is not precisely known, as the space was reconfigured numerous times through the 19th and 20th centuries. The fireplace slate hearth, large bracket, and interior oven are original and date to the Morris' period 1765 through 1776. The basement originally contained food and wine cellars, Additional areas are for storage and basic preparation, and possibly house domestic staff and enslaved individuals. In 1841, homeowner Eliza Jamel met and hired Annie Hamilton Northup, a free woman of color and wife of kidnapped freeman Solomon Northup, author of 12 Years a Slave, to work as a cook in her home. It is thought that Jamel may have helped Annie Northup to secure release of her husband Solomon from bondage. However, museum research is ongoing regarding the nature of their relationship. The Jamel's household staff also included hired help and indentured servants, mostly French, Irish, and Scottish immigrants. Eliza Jamel adopted her niece, Mary Bowen Jumel Chase, and later adopted her two children, William Inglis Chase and Eliza Jamel Chase, upon Mary's death when the children were very young. This bedchamber, previously belonged to William, is reflective of a mid-19th century child's room. Later, when his grandmother, Eliza, chose to live here permanently rather than in the summers, he joined her during school vacations. William would have studied subjects like mathematics, composition, history, drawing, natural science, and French. Some of the objects in the rooms showcase the interest of a young boy, such as painting of Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, and globes for geographical study. There is also a trunk on display reputed to have belonged to the French Emperor Napoleon. Initially, William spent only the summer months at the mansion, when the family was in residence. In 1853, Eliza Jamel took her grandchildren on a year-long, fashionable grand tour of Europe for their education, where she commissioned the large family portrait currently located in the entry hall downstairs. Another result of their European vacation was an arranged marriage between 90-year-old Eliza Chase and Paul Raymond Perry, an inspiring lawyer and son of a former business partner of the late Stephen Jamel. According to Jamel family tradition, Williams's marriage was for less desirable to Eliza to show her disapproval that he married against her wishes. She attached a black patch over her face in the painting. The Morris family would have used this room as an upper parlor, which was a more casual space than the formal parlor downstairs. Roger Morris, a loyalist, sailed to England at the onset of the Revolutionary War. Mary Phillips Morris and four of their children, along with the individuals they enslaved, moved upstate to the family estate, Phillips Manor Hall. which still exists today. General George Washington used this house as his headquarters from September 15, 1776 until October 21, 1776. He arrived here after suffering a major defeat at the Battle of Brooklyn on August 27, 1776. Washington and Roger Morris had previously fought along each other during the French and Indian War, 1754–63. Washington's decision to camp here had less to do with the hospitality of his old comrade than the home's strategic and elevated location. This room, with its many windows, provided a strategic vantage point for Washington to witness troops' movements. While Washington was headquartered here, he won the Battle of Harlem Heights, which was a turning point in the war. This room probably turned to its earlier use as a more casual parlor during Eliza Jamel's time, when the house once again became a family home. The many windows allowed a great deal of sunlight, making it an ideal space for reading, needlework, or drawing. It was later used as an art studio by the Earl family, who resided here from 1894 to 1903. Eliza Jamel married Aaron Burr, a Revolutionary War veteran and former vice president under Thomas Jefferson, in July 1833 in the French parlor of this house. It was a second marriage for both parties and interpreted today as one of convenience, where wealth and social status took precedence over love. By the time of their marriage, Burr had survived several scandals, personal tragedies, and financial reversals. He is most well known today for his infamous duel with Alexander Hamilton in 1804, who had also coincidentally spent a brief amount of time at the mansion as part of President George Washington's advisory dinner host on July 10, 1790. Eliza filed for divorce 4 months after the wedding. There was no such thing as no-fault divorce in the 19th century, and the court proceedings took years to finalize. In yet another historical coincidence, Burr died on the very day the divorce was finalized in 1836. In her later years, Eliza styled herself as the widow of former Vice President of the United States when traveling in Europe. The playwright Lin-Manuel Miranda spent some time in this room composing songs for his hit musical Hamilton, which focused on the creation and ideals of the young American nation, including Burr's ballad, The Room Where It Happened. Eliza Jamel, the mansion's longest resident, was an accomplished businesswoman at a time when most women did not have profession outside their domestic duties. Eliza had a humble root. After a career as an actress, she married the successful French merchant Stephen Jumel in 1804. During the first decades of the 19th century, Eliza lived in France, where she was thought to be part of the Napoleonic circle. It is likely that she acquired her fondness for Empire-style furnishings at this time. The furnishings in this room, most of which were originally owned by Eliza, represent the height of French taste during the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte (1804 to 1814) and include many typical decorative elements of the period, such as stars, palms, and Greco-Roman figures. Eliza often invented stories about the origins of her furnishings and other decorative items, such as claiming that the mahogany sleigh bed in this room, with its swan tester or canopy, was owned by Josephine Bonaparte. Eliza lived a remarkable life, rising from poverty to become one of the wealthiest women in America. She died a savvy businesswoman, cosmopolitan socialite, art decorator, and a charitable donor, and was known to help people who couldn't necessarily help themselves. This room is thought to be the first documented octagonal-shaped room built in the American colonies, although it is representative of cutting-edge contemporary British architectural design. With several architects in the family, Roger Morris was likely kept aware of the latest British architectural styles and trends, such as the Octagonal Room built the same year in Bath, England. The octagon shape, which allows for more windows than a square or rectangular room, is suggestive of garden structures found throughout British estates. Octagonal rooms also contain 20% more floor space than traditional shapes with the same parameter, making it excellent for entertaining. The almost panoramic view offered by the original 8, 6 are remaining windows provided the opportunity to bring the outdoors in. During the summer, open windows would have created a cooling breeze suggestive of the British garden structures used to escape the summer heat. In 1826, while Stephen Jumel was in France on business, Eliza wrote from New York discussing her plans to redecorate their summer house and requested that he purchase rolls of cloud pattern wallpaper for the Octagonal Room. The unsigned portrait of Eliza on display, dated to 1833, depicts Eliza wearing a morning gown honoring her late husband Stephen and seated on the same Duncan Fife sofa that is in this room today. A 20th century copy of an earlier portrait of her second husband, Aaron Burr, is featured on the opposite wall. Wow, we stepped into a home that is over 200 years old. Did you guys hear the floorboard creaks at times? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I learned so much in under 30 minutes. I hoped you enjoyed the visit as well. Now that you've seen what I saw, if you are ever in the New York City area, go and see it for yourself. A $10 donation and proof of COVID vaccine is all that is required. You can visit their website at morris-jumel.org for more information on the tours. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until my next excursion, Rowena Explores, signing off.